If we die as martyrs. This is a quote from a young girl in Gaza. How many Palestinian states do the Palestinians want? Maybe 2? All this and a lot more right here on the Joshua and Caleb Report.
In a world plagued with anti-Israel propaganda, Paul Yavel presents the Joshua and Caleb Report, a positive voice of truth straight from Israel's heartland.
In a world of negativity and fake news, every Christian should be connected to the life and positivity that Israel brings to the world. I'm Luke Hilton, here with Joshua Waller, right here on the Joshua and Caleb Report, in the biblical heartland of Israel. Some people like to call it the West Bank. That is an incorrect term.
That's right.
We're recording. Lots happening here in the heartland of Israel. We're bringing it all to you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell. And leave us a comment if you watch, but only good comments, because we like good comments. But we like all comments.
Thank everybody for commenting,
by the way,
actually.
Yes, yeah, we get like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments. So many comments that I can't even keep up. I try to respond to some of them. Josh doesn't respond to any of them, but he does read them. Right?
I like to, yeah.
And your wife reads them, so that's good.
Just to get a pulse on what's going on out there.
So just know we're reading them, and I respond as much as possible. So make sure you subscribe. Of course, you can still subscribe on podcast platforms. And thank you to all the new Patreon members. We've gotten several in the last week. And thank you all you guys who are supporting the show. It actually, becoming a Patreon member is what enables us to create more content like this. And it actually enables us to get out in the field on the front lines. You saw the footage of the fake riot that we released a couple weeks ago. So stuff like that, becoming a Patreon member, whether it's $25, $50, $100, $10, whatever you can do, it enables us to produce more and better content straight from the heartland. And you can do all that at patreon.com/Joshua and Caleb. Okay, I'm sure, Josh, everybody's wondering what's happening with Israeli politics. Yeah. We won't spend too much time on it. Although if you guys want a in-depth, lengthy discussion on what's happening with Israel's politics, let us know in the comments below. We could do something a little more detailed on next week's show. But here's a brief overview. As of actually today, they announced that the new government, new government, is set to be sworn in this Sunday. So we're recording on Tuesday. I don't even know the date. It's June something, 8th, I think.
June 8th.
June 8th. Yes, got it right. Planning to swear the new government in on Sunday. They're also going to elect a new Speaker of the Knesset. So those were like the two big things that had to happen for the new government coming in. Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid, who Naftali Bennett has been known as a member of the right. A lot of people are calling him a traitor, but I don't think he's so much of a traitor. Is joining with Yair Lapid, who is a member of the center. Let's call him center. Some people call him center left. Joining together to create a government. But here's the deal. You've got several right-wing parties. You've got several center-right, center-left parties. And then you have 3 completely left-wing parties, including the United Arab List, which is the Arab Party, one of the Arab parties, who's actually joined this coalition. So they're calling it a unity government. Some people are calling it the change government. It's actually a very diverse government that we have no idea what they're going to do, probably.
Luke, I heard a commentator say that it was actually like a car with 4 wheels going in different directions. And that may actually define this government the best, because really the only party you don't have represented in this government is the ultra right-wing government.
Right. Yeah.
You have everybody else, ultra right-wing party. You have every other party represented in the whole gamut. So to break it down, you have 19 lawmakers from the right wing and 42 from the center and left. So literally, but it's fascinating though, because the one that will stand in the premier spot, if everything goes through, Naftali Bennett actually only won 6 seats in the election. So out of the huge 120 seats that could be elected, he actually only got 6, but he will be the premier.
So I think he got 7.
He 6, 7,
6 or 7.
Like
very small party though.
So
he's the prime minister though. That's
that's huge.
Kind of unheard of.
But he does stand as a right-wing politician. Right. So at least the upper echelon of ministerial positions will be held in the right-wing hands.
Correct. Yeah, most of them, especially many of the strategic and key positions, you're talking about defense minister, minister of interior, justice minister, finance minister, are all mostly right-wing or center-right politicians.
Center. Gantz will be considered center.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. But he's already been the defense minister.
We've already talked about this, Luke.
You're a little bit quicker. You're a little bit quicker to jump on the new government to
Say that maybe
think
it's
that
not
there's more
exactly-
cons than pros. I'm more of like, hey, let's wait and see. I think part of it is just because there's been 4 elections in 2 years and no government. So, and I think this is probably the perspective of a lot of Israelis. They're just ready for something new. Netanyahu has been prime minister for 13 years. He's been Israel's longest-serving prime minister, and people are just ready to see something new. And so whether or not this government stays together or falls apart in a few months, hopefully it'll usher in, new guys that can do good things.
Yeah.
Now, so I was going to say a pro and a con. One of the big cons, here you go, Josh. I'm bringing out a con.
Okay.
Is that Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett have not released what are in the coalition agreements. Basically, the documents that they have signed saying this is what our government is going to look like, they haven't released those documents, and they've said they won't release them until after the inauguration. That's a little bit troubling because obviously the public the public can't say I'm supporting them or not supporting them because they don't know what their policies are going to be. Okay, that's the con.
Right.
Pro is that Naftali Bennett is a Orthodox, religious, very Zionist leader, pro-Judea and Samaria, pro-Heartland, and he's had amazing policies in the past.
Good track record.
So as prime minister, we can hope and pray that he will do a lot of good. So one more other thing I want to quickly say in this whole position, if you're an evangelical Christian, especially pro-Israel Christian, you may have heard some things in the media or online that if Netanyahu is replaced and comes out of power, that this is the end of evangelical support for Israel. We just want to say, bottom line for this new government, we talked about, they're made up of right, center, left-wing parties. Many of the key positions are in the hands of the right-wing or center-right parties. Things are still very unknown. But regardless of who is in power, nothing changes our mandate as Christian Zionists, and those mandates are, bless Israel, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So, and our perspective is that even if Israel's government takes a wrong direction or we have wrong policies or things go south, as supporters of Israel, we can actually show them we're supporting you to go in the right direction. And if there's thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of Christians saying, no, support Judea and Samaria, support the heartland, support Israel's right to defend themselves, that's when Israel's government is actually encouraged to go in the right direction. So no matter what, evangelical support for Israel should stay the same, no matter who's in the government or what their policies are.
Luke, this has always been our lines. Is basically we want to stand in support of Israel and help Israel. If we can be an international group of folks that rises up to help Israel make good decisions for its betterment, then we want to do that. Wonder, Luke, if we actually had influence somehow on UNRWA. So UNRWA must have been influenced by
lost cause,
some sort of right-wing situation, because he actually recognized the UNRWA director in Gaza.
Well, he almost recognized.
Well, he kind of said that Israel didn't specifically target civilians and actually used precision targeting.
He went from anti-Israel to a little bit less anti-Israel. And what did he immediately get? He got kicked out of Gaza. Okay, here's the story.
Well, it's good to have his life.
By the way, UNRWA is the United Nations. It's a long name. Relief and Works Agency. It's basically the agency the UN started to take care of Palestinian refugees after 1948 or 1967.
That's a long time ago.
Probably 1948. But they've been in place for a long time. The Gaza Director of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees this past week actually said, and I'll read a couple of his quotes. He said, "I'm not a military expert, but I would not dispute that," talking about Israel's airstrikes in Gaza. And by the way, his name is... Anyways, I have his name. Oh, there it is. Matthias Schmale, okay? Head of the UN, the UNRWA in Gaza. He said, "I also have the impression that there's a huge sophistication in the way the Israeli military struck over the past 11 days. So that's not my issue." He's basically saying he's not disputing that the IDF very precisely hit their targets. Right. He's saying he does not disagree with the fact that Israel has precision capabilities when they're hitting targets in Gaza. Okay. He does go on to say, "My issue is another one. I've had many colleagues describe to me that they feel that in comparison to the 2014 war, this time the strikes felt much more vicious in terms of their impact. So they didn't hit, with some exceptions, civilian targets, but the viciousness, ferocity of the strikes was heavily felt." So he says these things, which is amazing coming from, you think it should be norm for the UN, right? But obviously we know that UNRWA is very anti-Israel. What happens immediately? And I actually have some photos of this. If we can pull up the photo on the screen there. Immediately there is mass riots and demonstrations in Gaza. The Quds News Network tweeted, and I have a couple different pictures here, that the protesters numbered in the thousands, and they were outraged at Shmuel for what they considered whitewashing the Israeli crimes and claiming they didn't target civilians. And you can see some of the signs from the protesters here. One who is justifying a crime is an accomplice. Matthias Shmuel, go out. And what happened? He had to leave Gaza. I'm not for sure if they kicked him out or if he left for his own safety, but he did get called in for consultation and discussion at the Jerusalem headquarters over the latest developments in Gaza.
And again, Luke, his crime was that he said the truth.
The truth.
Wow. Say the truth in Gaza and you'll have your head. Okay. Okay.
If I was him, I would have been very glad to leave Gaza.
Yeah, he made
And
it
they're
out.
saying he's been temporarily replaced and everything. Something interesting is that UNRWA is the biggest employer in the Gaza Strip.
Uh-huh.
Should that tell you anything?
Yeah, it tells you actually, Luke, there's 23,000 employees for the UNRWA there, and only 100 of them, 23,000 are employed by UNRWA. 100
Right.
of them are internationals from outside, professionals that come in and train and do things. So 300,000 employees from UNRWA that are of the locals.
23,000, right?
23,000. Okay, what are they training them? What are they doing? And actually, there's a lot of proof to go, and
Right.
people can check out the links below later. Read these articles. Unbelievable. Some of the actual people were straight from Hamas. Teachers, educators, leaders, even the supreme leader right now of Hamas he actually graduated top of his class from a UNRWA school. What was he taught?
And it's
How was he
documented.
taught?
Yeah, this is not something that are conspiracies anymore. This is documented evidence that UNRWA teaches incitement and propaganda and violence against Israel in their schools. It's documented that Hamas and the Islamic Jihad hides their rockets and missiles in schools and UNRWA schools, medical facilities, and sometimes rocket launching sites in these same facilities.
But the world refuses to recognize this. Okay, the world refuses to recognize it, but let me just give you this quote, Luke. I don't care. You don't have to listen to us. Maybe you would listen to the UN Deputy Commissioner herself. Lenny Stinseth says, thank you to Hamas. She sends a thank you to Hamas Supreme Leader Yahya Sinwar for his positivity and desire to continue cooperation with UNRWA, according to the statement from the terror groups translated by Honest Reporting. She also affirmed her solidarity. Okay, so she's affirming her solidarity, and here she goes. She says, and offers condolences. She's offering condolences to this noted terror organization slated to destroy Israel. That's their intent. On behalf of her agency, for what Palestinians lost in the latest Israeli aggressions. This is from the UNRWA Deputy Commissioner herself, talking directly to the head commander of Hamas and telling him so sorry for all the aggressions and the Israeli aggressions that happened. What's wrong with this picture? Something terribly wrong with this picture. And as we mentioned last week, the United States has just issued funding back into UNRWA. The most insane thing that could possibly happen in this world would be that a recognized terror organization, not funding, makes a lot of sense. We're going to go in and we're going to fund them, and they're going to say we're not going to fund them. We're going to fund UNRWA instead, so that it doesn't get into Hamas's hands. Well, it's so well
Even though
documented.
they teach propaganda
They go straight
and
into
lies,
Hamas's
violence,
hands.
and terrorism in their very schools.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with the rest of the show, but first I wanted to tell you about our new book. It's called Facing Jerusalem. You know, Christianity is in trouble. Every day our faith is attacked and often watered down. Those who are zealous for their faith are few in number, or they're not willing to speak up. A lot of young people are even leaving the faith of their childhood to chase the dream of this world. If we look carefully at the Bible, we find that God gives us hope through an ancient prayer. This prayer unlocks the door to forgiveness and God's favor in our lives. It all goes back to the dedication of the temple in Jerusalem when Solomon prayed for the nations. Solomon prayed for you. Many times when Christianity is seeking repentance and revival today, however, the key ingredient is left out, and it's facing Jerusalem. I was privileged to co-author this book, Facing Jerusalem, along with Zach Waller. Filled with our personal stories, this book paints a beautiful picture of how all believers should care about and recognize Jerusalem's key role in the redemption of the world. Solomon asked God to answer the prayer of those from the nations that look toward and face Jerusalem. Is this prayer still relevant today? Purchase our book at facingjerusalemthebook.com or click the link in the description below. You can even enter the promo code Joshua and Caleb for a special listener-only discount. Order your copy today and experience God's plan of redemption and blessing in your life. Just go to facingjerusalemthebook.com or click the link in the description below. Okay, we're going to leave UNRWA now and talk about Hamas some more, because I think when we've past shows, you can check out the last few weeks shows that we've done, we've documented how awful Hamas is and that they're an actual terrorist organization. They don't care about their own people. Many of the civilians and children killed in Gaza during the latest conflict were actually killed by Hamas rockets. It gets even worse. They're actually abusing their own children. The quote you quoted at the beginning of today's show, "If we die, we'll die as martyrs," that was Hamas's spokesman's young daughter. Lama is the young daughter of Hamas Ministry of Internal Affairs spokesman Iyad al-Buzum. And he posted a video of her. We have some screenshots of the video. I'll pull up here. This heartbreaking photos amid Hamas rocket barrage against Israel last month. She said, "If we die, we'll die as martyrs for the sake of Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa." That's the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. As well. "And if we live, we'll live in dignity and glory. We'll return to Palestine." Now, key here, and look at these screenshots. "We'll return to Ashkelon, Haifa, Jaffa, Sfat, and Beit Shean, to all of Palestine, and we will pray at Al-Aqsa. When the occupying Jews occupied our land, they said the adults will die and the children will forget." Josh, where is Ashkelon, Haifa, Jaffa, Sfat, and Beit Shean?
Well, it basically covers the whole state of Israel that's outside of Gaza and Judea, Samaria, West Bank.
So when you've probably heard this chant, if it's on social media or if you're on a school campus and you've actually seen a protest like this, you know what this is referring to. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They're not talking about Gaza. They're not talking about the West Bank. They're not talking about the Golan Heights. They're talking about Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jaffa, Beit Shean. These are all Israeli cities. They're talking about obliterating and annihilating the Jewish people from the land of Israel. And what's heartbreaking is that they're abusing their very children. Also, official PATV Palestine This Morning TV show, and this was only about 2 weeks ago on May 25th. We have videos, and we'll pull up some more screenshots of the videos here, of children marching, and the quotes are, "Millions of martyrs are marching to Jerusalem. Millions of martyrs are marching to Jerusalem." And you see children with Palestinian flags, and you see many of these children with weapons, whether they're toys or real. Their very brains and their bodies from a young age are being completely indoctrinated and brainwashed to hate. And their hate is directed. They don't even know what they're saying. They're saying, "We'll march on Jerusalem. Millions of martyrs will march on Jerusalem. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." All of Israel, obliterating an entire people.
Luke, what happens?
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it truly is heartbreaking to see children educated this way. What happens when actually one of these children goes on their training and commits a crime against Israel? We've talked about it a lot of times on the show before. They immediately begin their salaries. They're getting paid by the PA, Hamas, you name it, whatever terrorist organization you want to pick out of the hat. They're going to be celebrated and paid when they get home, if they make it home. If they don't make it home, their families will be paid.
Right.
Or if they do make it to an Israeli prison, they'll be paid in the prison cell. We have just now, we have a family that's beginning their salaries. We have a $42,000 gift going into a family.
This one is actually even worse than your typical salary. Okay, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, or the head, whatever his position is, he actually donated personally $42,000 to the family of terrorist Muhannad Halabi, and this is from a terrorist attack in 2015. He murdered Rabbi Nehemiah Levi, Aaron Bennett in the Old City. Also seriously injured Bennett's wife and their 2-year-old daughter.
I remember this happening. Yeah,
this was 2015.
Yeah.
He was killed by the police. After the attack, Israel demolished the house he was living in because that's their policy to deter other people from committing terrorist attacks. The Palestinian Media Watch, a watch organization, documented the PA and Fatah's praise and admiration for him. They actually named a street after him. They named sports tournaments after him. They brought soil from the Al-Aqsa Mosque to his grave. They made him into a hero, a national hero. Now what happened this last week? According to Halabi, this terrorist's sister, 130,000 Jordanian dinars, which is almost $200,000, were donated to the family so that they could. So they decided to buy a house with that money because I guess the other house was demolished, right? However, they only got 100,000 dinars, whatever that is in dollars, maybe $140,000. But they had already committed to buying this house. So the owners of the house that were selling it to them got impatient. They decided to file a lawsuit. The family complained, and Mahmoud Abbas said, "Don't worry, I'll write a check from my pocket personally for $42,000 so that you can buy the home of your dreams."
To a terrorist family.
To a terrorist family after their house had been destroyed because a terrorist killed two people and seriously injured two others.
And this is who the United States, once again, and the rest of the world is trying to work with to create a Palestinian state. And on that topic, Luke, we got to say, okay, and we asked this question in the opening. How many Palestinian states do we want? And
a lot of people don't realize this.
People are going to be asking,
Palestinian states have already been created.
Right. What are you talking about? How many Palestinian states? Duh, there's only one Palestinian state. Well, actually, no. There's actually a lot more than one Palestinian state in the works. Well, if you go back to 1917, we could show it on the map here real quick. Here's the Balfour Declaration, happens in 1917. The Balfour Declaration, a lot of people may get confused about this, but this is a huge map that covers a incredible amount of land. But this is actually, the Balfour itself says, His Majesty government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the
Jewish people.
In Palestine. Obviously, the lingo back here in the Balfour Declaration is there's no such a thing as a Palestinian. Well, Jews fall into that category, and obviously Palestine is dedicated to create a Jewish state in Palestine. Palestine is not a state. Palestine is a area that will be formed into the Jewish state. It's just a landmass that's here that they're not. This is not a state that's being formed. It's there's actually no other government that formed a state on this land except for Israel 2,000 years before.
Right.
Every other occupier only came in and held the name, and actually the name Palestine, as we talked about it in shows before, was only a Roman smear on the nation of Israel. That name held in place until the Jewish people came back. No other nation ever held statehood over this land, aside for the Jewish people. So we step forward, 1917, and we see that huge landmass. All of a sudden, just a couple years later, the British decide that that's too much land for the Jews, and they start slicing up the land that was committed to be the first Jewish state.
Number one, right?
Yeah, that's
Jordan.
That's number one.
You have Jordan. And that's huge amount of land.
So now, but
which was known as Transjordan, right?
This nation of Israel was first mapped number one. Number two is they cut Jordan. They cut it in like 70% of it off, and they give that to Jordan, which is called Transjordan.
We see that on the map.
You see Transjordan. Now today, no less than 80% of the people living in Jordan are Palestinians. Okay, there's Palestinian state. Number one is actually Jordan today.
Right.
Okay, follow me. Now, there's 2 million Palestinians. Israel pulled completely out of where? Gaza. They pulled completely out of Gaza, and Palestinian state number 2 is declared in Gaza. Now, what have they been working on now? They have, from their original landmass given to Israel in 1917, we've already have a Jordanian Palestinian state, for all means and purposes, Palestinian state. We have Gaza, for every purpose. They operate on their own. That's a second Palestinian state. And now work is going like crazy. The international world is furious and fighting hard for what? The third Palestinian state in Judea, Samaria, what they call the West Bank.
Right.
They're vicious about creating the third and if you know, everything we've talked about already, Luke, is outlining the fourth. What is the fourth Palestinian state? As you already talked about, from the river to the sea. They don't only want Transjordan, that's called Jordan today. They don't want only Gaza, that's the Gaza border with Egypt. They don't only want the Judea and Samaria They want all of Israel. They want voting rights. They want equal voting rights and power in the nation of Israel, just as an Israeli. So go ahead and call it 4 Palestinian states right in the landmass that was given to the Jews in 1917 by the Balfour Declaration that has never been reversed, by the way. This is like they actually gave that to the land of Israel. And since then, it's been a political nightmare of dicing and slicing up the land of Israel and giving it away to its Arab neighbors.
You didn't even mention the fact that another Arab state was created, giving away the Sinai Peninsula.
Well, actually, in 2000,
they gave it to Egypt, right? But that was another huge chunk of the land of Israel carved off. And the world, even today, even after Israel has recognized their sovereignty on the Golan Heights, there's still people today that says, Israel, give back to the Golan Heights to Syria. They want to carve that piece off and give it to Syria, make another Arab part of an Arab state up there. So I just think it's crazy that you have a little tiny, less than 1%. Israel is less than 1% of the size of the entire Arab world, right?
Yeah.
You have this little tiny piece of land, and they keep trying to carve it up. Let's take another percentage away. Let's take another percentage away. Let's take another percentage away until there's nothing left, and there's no homeland for the Jew. And that was the huge problem that we had in World War II and the Holocaust, right? Is that there was no place for the Jewish people to go, including the United States. The United States turned refugees away. Europe turned refugees away. They came to the land called Palestine, and they made that their home, which has been their ancestral home for thousands and thousands of years. But today, no one is even satisfied. The Arabs are not even satisfied with Gaza. They're not satisfied with wanting Judea and Samaria. They want the entire land of Israel to be Judenrein.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you look at it.
Free.
Okay, let's talk about Judenrein for just a second. And everybody talks about how the nation of Israel is democracy but then on the other side they're talking about how it's a apartheid state and they don't have rights and freedom for the Arabs. What are the rights and freedoms for the Jews in any one of these 4 Palestinian states they're working on?
Exactly.
0. They're on the process of being Judenrein. That's unacceptable. Cannot happen.
And we're going to show some of the things because we've had questions in the comments. You guys have been talking to us. You say, do a show about apartheid because we know that's a term that's thrown around a lot in the West Bank. We're going to do it. It's in the books. We have a lot of the research done. It's one of those shows we have to hit the roads, go out into the field because we want to actually show you what it looks like. So again, if you guys can support us on Patreon, you can also give a one-time donation, patreon.com/Joshua and Caleb. You could help produce this show. We need the time and the resources to get it done, but we will get it out there. Guys, also just drop things in the comments of other things that you would like us to cover because our mission is to get the truth. We had the Torah portion of the 2 good spies, Joshua and Caleb, that brought the good report and the true report back from the land of Israel, and that's our mission here at the Joshua and Caleb Report. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to ring the bell, and in the meantime, be strong, be courageous, and be the voice of Joshua and Caleb in your generation.
I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I believe.
Hi guys, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We also have tons more incredible content straight from Israel's heartland, which you can find completely free at joshuaandcaleb.com. If you're interested in signing up for a life-changing volunteer program in Israel's heartland, you can go to serveisrael.com. We host Christians from all over the world to help plant trees, harvest grapes, prune vines, and basically help farmers all over Judea and Samaria, all while experiencing the land and people of Israel in a way that you're never going to get on a 10-day tour. Just go to serveisrael.com to find out more information.
Yes, I will stand.